Claire Dawson stirred from her slumber at 4:30 a.m., a ritual she had embraced daily for the last 3 years. The cozy apartment above her bakery spared her the hassle of a morning commute, yet it did little to alleviate the weariness that had become her ever-present companion. She splashed cold water on her face, secured her auburn hair into a practical bun, and made her way downstairs to start the day's tasks. By 5:15, her hands were immersed in dough, moving through the familiar rhythm that had transformed into both her means of living and her refuge. The bakery, perfectly titled Rise, represented her opportunity for renewal after everything she knew had crumbled. She vividly recalled the day her mother walked through the door, tears cascading down her cheeks, holding termination papers from Reynolds Industries tightly in her grasp. In just a few months, they had lost their home, her college fund, and her mother's determination to keep going. At the age of 28, Claire had created something uniquely hers. It lacked glamour and wasn't especially lucrative, yet it belonged to her. She rolled out the dough for cinnamon rolls, feeling the familiar strain in her muscles. "You're going to wear yourself thin," Mia remarked, her assistant, arriving at 6:30 to help open the shop. Claire wore a smile despite her exhaustion. That's the purpose of coffee. The morning hustle was in full swing. Local patrons swinging by for breakfast, construction crews snatching coffee, and young professionals collecting pastries for their office gatherings. As noon approached, the rhythm eased, allowing Claire to begin working on custom orders. In a modern high-rise with a view of Manhattan, Nathan Reynolds examined quarterly projections, his imported lunch largely untouched. At 32, he held the position of executive vice president at Reynolds Industries, the corporation his mother had transformed into a formidable entity through strategies that were impactful, though not always above board. His office stood as a testament to achievement, with expansive windows reaching from floor to ceiling, sleek furniture that could rival the price of luxury vehicles, and accolades showcased with an air of understated elegance. Nathan relaxed his Italian silk tie, sensing the familiar tension mounting behind his temples. His assistant reminded him that London is expecting confirmation by Friday regarding his upcoming transfer to lead European operations. This marked the most recent move in the meticulously crafted journey his mother had envisioned for him from the moment he entered the world. "They'll understand," he responded instinctively, yet a part of him pushed back against the sentiment. His afternoon unfolded with a series of relentless meetings, acquisitions, layoffs masked as restructuring, and strategy sessions that felt increasingly devoid of substance. As the evening wore on, it dawned on him that he had overlooked his mother's birthday, which was just around the corner. He sighed, scrolling through his phone in search of gift ideas. Margaret Reynolds was a tough audience, but arriving without anything in hand was simply out of the question. It was the driver who recommended the bakery in Brooklyn. "My wife is a huge fan of this place called Rise," he mentioned, claiming that the woman who runs it creates the finest cakes in the city. Nathan, feeling the weight of his circumstances, reluctantly consented. The following afternoon, he stood on a tree-lined street that seemed to belong to a different realm. No concierge, no parking attendants, just everyday individuals leading everyday lives. The bakery exuded charm, its cozy size complemented by a hand-painted sign and the delightful aroma of vanilla wafting through the open door. The stark difference to his world was unsettling. In place of chrome and glass, there was inviting wood and gentle illumination. Gone were the quiet, calculated discussions. Instead, the air was filled with laughter and light-hearted banter. Behind the counter, Claire stood, her sleeves rolled up and a pencil tucked behind her ear, ready for whatever came next. She glanced upward as the bell chimed, signaling his arrival, and an unspoken change enveloped them, a sense of something both strange and known. "How may I assist you?" she inquired, her hands brushing against the fabric of her apron. Nathan advanced, a sense of vulnerability washing over him in the absence of his familiar surroundings. "I require a birthday cake," he stated. "For tomorrow." Claire arched an eyebrow. "Brief announcement." He acknowledged it. "I see. I overlooked it." The truth tasted oddly unfamiliar on his tongue. In his realm, vulnerabilities were neither recognized nor admitted to outsiders. "It can't be that significant," she responded, yet a trace of amusement danced in her green eyes. "It's for my mother," Nathan explained, "and it's quite intricate." Claire observed him intently, noting not only the tailored suit and assured stance but also a deeper, nuanced fatigue that resonated with her own experiences. "Are all relationships not rooted in family?" At last she spoke. "Allow me to explore my options. What type of cake are you envisioning?" The inquiry took him by surprise. Nathan Reynolds, a master of million-dollar decisions, found himself utterly perplexed when it came to choosing a cake for his own mother. Nathan made his way back to Rise the next afternoon, arriving ahead of the time Claire had indicated. He positioned his upscale sedan across the street, a sense of unease washing over him as he glanced at his watch, a reflex honed from numerous critical encounters. Within the bakery, the quiet of the afternoon fostered a serene ambience that stood in stark contrast to his typical surroundings. Claire stood behind the counter, deeply focused on her task. With a deft touch, she meticulously placed fresh berries on the cake, the very one made by his mother. She overlooked him at first, granting Nathan a unique opportunity to watch someone who wasn't attempting to charm or mislead him. "That looks absolutely stunning," he remarked at last, moving closer to the counter. Claire glanced upward, briefly taken aback. She observed that you were early, her tone devoid of irritation, wrapping up the last details. Nathan observed her with keen interest, captivated by the meticulous attention she devoted to every detail. In his realm, such duties were assigned to others, never to be handled by him directly. He noted the seriousness with which you approach this. Claire's laughter rang out, a true melody that illuminated the cozy warmth of the bakery. "I left a corporate position to pursue this path. If I don't approach it with seriousness, what was the purpose?" The unexpected disclosure took him aback. "You've stepped away from the corporate realm?" She hesitated, weighing her thoughts before replying. "It simply wasn't meant for me." The pay was decent, yet she shrugged. "While financial stability holds significance, the pursuit of joy is equally vital." The straightforward declaration hung in the air, imbued with a significance that felt almost overwhelming. Nathan reflected on his existence, the relentless pressure, the unending obligation to validate his worthiness of the Reynolds legacy, the empty fulfillment of ambitions that had been imposed upon him rather than chosen by him. He remarked that the majority tend to go the other way, exchanging their passion for the comfort of security. Claire placed the last berry atop the cake. "Fortune smiled upon me. My grandmother bequeathed me just enough to launch this venture." She waved her hand, indicating the cozy bakery that surrounded them. "It may not be extravagant, but it belongs to me." The unmistakable pride in her voice stirred a sense of envy within Nathan. When was the last occasion he experienced true pride in his craft, instead of merely feeling relieved for fulfilling expectations? "What prompted your departure?" he inquired with a sincere sense of curiosity. Claire delicately nestled the cake into its box. She looked up at him, taking in his expensive suit, feeling the weight of her toxic boss, the grueling hours, and the stark realization that she was contributing to the wealth of the privileged while her own efforts felt meaningless. "No offense." "None taken," Nathan responded, astonished to realize he was sincere. "At times, I find myself pondering that very question." The revelation escaped his lips before he could rein it in, a truth he'd never voiced, not even in the quiet of his own mind. Claire's eyebrows lifted just a bit, yet she chose not to elaborate, redirecting her attention to fastening the cake box with a delicate ribbon. "This birthday," she mentioned. "Will it be a grand celebration?" Nathan gave a slight shake of his head. "Only dinner, just the two of us. My mother doesn't really enjoy celebrations." "That sheds light on the neglected cake," Claire playfully remarked. Nathan acknowledged that she wasn't the simplest person to satisfy. Nothing ever seems to reach perfection. Claire passed him the box, their fingers grazing for a fleeting moment. "I truly hope this meets the criteria." The brief touch lingered, unexpectedly influencing him. "I'm certain it will," he remarked, although both knew Margaret Reynolds would probably discover something to critique. Nathan settled the bill, leaving a substantial tip that caused Claire to blink in surprise. "This isn't needed," she remarked. "He insisted that you rescued him on such short notice. Thank you for your kindness." As he pivoted to depart, Nathan came to the unsettling realization that he was reluctant to leave. The bakery, radiating a cozy simplicity and Claire's candid demeanor, seemed like a sanctuary from his meticulously crafted reality. "I might drop by again," he said, lingering at the threshold. "The aroma of your coffee is simply delightful." Claire beamed, her smile radiating warmth and lighting up her eyes. "We welcome you every day except for Monday." Nathan departed with more than merely a cake. He bore the essence of Claire's radiant smile, her heartfelt musings on prioritizing joy over wealth, and an unsettling sense that he had caught a fleeting glimpse of an untraveled road. As Nathan drove to his mother's estate in Westchester County, his mind wandered not to the upcoming dinner or the London transfer, but to flower-dusted hands and green eyes that perceived more than he was ready to reveal. The stark difference between Claire's humble bakery and his mother's grand mansion hit him hard as he drove into the circular driveway. Surveillance cameras documented his entrance, and a uniformed housekeeper welcomed him at the door with rehearsed respect. "Mr. Reynolds, your mother is in the study," she conveyed to him. Nathan nodded, cake box in hand, already sensing the familiar burden of expectations returning to his shoulders. Yet a subtle change had occurred, almost imperceptibly. After a long time, he began to contemplate the possibility of a different way of life. Margaret Reynolds' study felt more like a gallery than a home, carefully curated, lavishly adorned, and ultimately lacking warmth. Family photos adorned the walls, showcasing accomplishments instead of capturing the essence of togetherness. Nathan set the cake box down on the mahogany desk, where his mother meticulously examined documents with the same fervor she devoted to all her endeavors. "You're 3 minutes late," she remarked, her gaze fixed elsewhere. "Traffic," Nathan responded succinctly. Understanding the futility of excuses, Margaret lifted her gaze, evaluating him with the same meticulous attention she applied to financial statements. At 62, she exuded strength, her silver hair styled in a sharp bob, posture flawless, attire pristine. She gestured towards the cake box. "What is this? Happy birthday, Mother?" Nathan exclaimed, lifting the lid of the box to unveil Claire's masterpiece. Margaret examined the cake, her face a mask of mystery. "It appears to be crafted with care." Nathan perceived the understated critique, yet opted to overlook it. "A quaint bakery nestled in Brooklyn." "Brooklyn," she echoed, as though the very essence of the borough was up for debate. "How charming." They made their way to the dining room, where the housekeeper had lovingly arranged Margaret's favorite meal. The dialogue unfolded as it typically does, with updates on business matters, unsolicited strategic counsel from Nathan, and incisive inquiries regarding the London transfer. She reminded him that the board anticipates confirmation this week, reflecting the words of his assistant. Nathan acknowledged with a nod, slicing into his steak with precision. "I understand. It's the natural progression," Margaret continued. "Your grandfather surely would have felt a sense of pride." Nathan's grandfather, a figure from his past that he could scarcely recall, yet whose influence cast a long shadow over every choice he made. The name Reynolds was steeped in both privilege and weight, a truth that Margaret ensured he would always remember. While the housekeeper poured coffee and presented the birthday cake, Nathan's thoughts drifted back to Claire once more. Would she be pleased to see her creation presented on exquisite hand-painted china valued in the thousands? "This is surprisingly good," Margaret confessed with a hint of hesitation, taking a small bite. "Could you remind me where you mentioned you obtained it?" "A bakery named Rise," Nathan mentioned, operated by a woman named Claire Dawson. Margaret's fork halted in mid-air, suspended just before reaching her lips. Her expression transformed delicately, with a subtle tension around the eyes and a gentle narrowing of the lips. "Dawson?" she inquired, her tone abruptly cutting. Nathan's brow furrowed as he observed the shift. "Absolutely. Are you familiar with her?" His mother delicately set her fork aside. "Her mother was once employed by me." The conclusion was far from favorable. The intentional ambiguity of this statement raised red flags. In the realm of business, it rarely concluded positively, frequently masking something far more sinister. What transpired? Nathan inquired. Years ago, Margaret waved it away, delicately dabbing her lips with a napkin. Organizational realignment. Such occurrences are part of life. Yet there was an undertone in her voice that hinted at something deeper. Nathan was attuned to his mother, able to sense when she was holding back the truth. It appears to be quite a remarkable coincidence, he noted. Margaret's eyes turned steely. Let it go, Nathan. It's a relic of the past and not something I want to delve into on my special day. The dialogue transitioned to more secure subjects. Yet, that moment remained etched in Nathan's thoughts. As the night deepened in his apartment with a view of Central Park, he found himself unable to resist the pull of curiosity. He powered up his laptop and began to look for information on Claire Dawson and Reynolds Industries. The outcome left him feeling queasy. 5 years prior, Ellen Dawson, a senior accountant at Reynolds Industries, submitted a whistleblower complaint regarding dubious accounting practices. After a fortnight, she found herself dismissed due to concerns about her performance. The follow-up inquiry exonerated Reynolds Industries of significant misconduct, yet highlighted procedural inconsistencies in both the accounting practices and the dismissal process. Nathan delved further, uncovering a poignant human interest piece in a neighborhood Brooklyn publication. Ellen Dawson experienced a stroke brought on by stress soon after her job loss. Medical expenses accumulated. The family faced the heartbreaking loss of their home. Ellen's recovery was incomplete, necessitating continuous care that depleted their finances. Claire, her daughter, had set aside her promising marketing career to look after her mother and embark on a venture inspired by her grandmother's cherished recipes. Nathan shut his laptop, a wave of nausea washing over him. This was far from the vague corporate restructuring his mother had painted a picture of. This was a calculated obliteration of an individual who had the audacity to confront Reynolds' methods. Did Claire acknowledge his name? Was she aware of his identity when she baked the cake for his mother? The idea of going back to the bakery now loomed over him like a dark cloud. She would be completely justified in harboring resentment towards him, viewing him as a partner in her family's decline. Still, he found himself drawn back. There was something about Claire, a certain genuine quality in her life and decisions, that stirred up questions he had buried deep for years. Inquiries regarding the organization he stood for, concerning the principles he had embraced without scrutiny, about the journey he persisted on even as discomfort began to surface. Tomorrow, he resolved, he would make his way back to Rise. He would confront any acknowledgement or backlash that came his way. For the first time, Nathan Reynolds would confront an uncomfortable reality instead of the soothing falsehood that had defined his life. As he finally drifted into slumber, Nathan recognized that for the first time in years, the morrow was shrouded in uncertainty. And oddly, that seemed to embody freedom rather than fear. The following morning, Nathan postponed his arrival at the office for the first time in years. His assistant's voice was tinged with barely concealed shock when he called to reschedule his 9 a.m. gathering. Rather than taking his typical express route to Manhattan, he opted for a drive to Brooklyn, mentally rehearsing explanations that felt empty even in his thoughts. Rise appeared transformed in the morning light, bustling with energy and life. A queue of patrons extended all the way to the entrance. Every individual stood there, patiently anticipating what Nathan had come to realize were well-deserved delights. He stepped into the line, his stomach tightening with every move he made. As he approached the counter, Claire's warm smile wavered slightly. Her eyes sparkled with instant recognition. A fleeting glimpse of emotion, pain, rage, treachery, swiftly concealed beneath a veneer of professionalism. "How may I assist you today?" she inquired, her tone distinctly more frosty than the day before. Nathan hesitated beneath her stare. "Only coffee, thank you." She nodded sharply, pivoting to assemble his order devoid of the friendliness he had observed with other patrons. As she came back with his coffee, she leaned a bit over the counter. "You didn't share your last name," she murmured. careful to keep her voice low so that the other customers wouldn't overhear. Nathan released a slow breath. I never believed it was significant. Indeed, it does. Claire's knuckles turned pale as she clutched the counter tightly. Your mother shattered my family. Her statement struck with an unexpected intensity. Her tone held no accusation, merely a straightforward declaration of reality, which, in its simplicity, cut deeper. Claire, I truly had no idea, Nathan expressed with sincerity. I just discovered it last night. She observed him closely, probing for any signs of dishonesty. However, you are now aware. Indeed. He maintained her gaze, unwilling to avert his eyes from the anguish he embodied. The situation involving your mother was unjust. Claire blinked, caught off guard by his revelation. Throughout her encounters, Reynolds consistently failed to recognize any fault. That doesn't alter a thing, she remarked after a moment of reflection. Words alone cannot mend what has transpired. The queue behind Nathan began to fidget with impatience. Claire adjusted her professional facade, ensuring it was perfectly in place. The total comes to 4.75. Nathan settled the bill, generously leaving a substantial tip. Claire swiftly approached the community college scholarship jar by the register, her actions conveying a powerful message without uttering a word. He spoke softly, expressing a desire to converse. During your downtime. I'm always busy, Claire responded, already shifting her attention to the next customer. Nathan carried his coffee to a quaint little table tucked away in the corner. He was scheduled for meetings, had calls awaiting his response, and faced decisions regarding London. He remained seated, observing Claire as she worked with precision and concentration, occasionally sharing a smile with the regulars, even though the tension his presence brought was palpable. After an hour had gone by, the bakery finally thinned out, allowing Claire to make her way to his table, her hands being wiped clean on her apron. What brings you to this place still? She inquired directly. Nathan locked his gaze with hers. I find myself grappling with a question that I should have explored long ago. Claire folded her arms across her chest. What is that? The price of achievement, he stated plainly. The true essence of my family's business. Claire noted the timing was convenient for one's conscience, though a hint of softness crept into her expression. It's better to arrive late than not at all, Nathan suggested. A faint, humorless chuckle slipped from her lips. Convey that to my mother. She is unable to work any longer, struggling to form coherent sentences on her most challenging days. The heaviness of that truth lingered in the air between them. Nathan grappled with the challenge of expressing himself without his words feeling hollow. I'm not seeking absolution, he finally stated. I am not worthy of it. However, I want you to understand that I am not my mother. Claire shook her head in disbelief. Her actions provide you with daily advantages. She employs you at her company. You are on the verge of assuming control of European operations. I perused the latest updates in the business world. Nathan, you are just like your mother. Her words landed with accuracy, honing in on uncertainties he had scarcely admitted to himself. Perhaps I have been, he conceded. Yet, transformation is possible for individuals. Is it possible for them? Claire took on the challenge. Or is that merely their response when faced with their involvement? Just as he was about to reply, the bell above the door chimed, announcing the arrival of new patrons. Claire straightened, her composure returning as she donned her professional facade once more. I don't expect you to believe me, Nathan said quickly before she walked away. Yet, I hope this doesn't conclude before it truly begins. Claire halted, a flicker of bewilderment crossing her expression. Is this doesn't exist, Nathan? Is you grappling with guilt while I'm focused on managing a business? She made her way back to the counter, leaving Nathan with his lukewarm coffee and the unsettling reality of her judgment. He had idealized their fleeting interaction, envisioning a depth of understanding where there was merely polite customer service. As Nathan finally departed, he came to the realization that he had been searching for forgiveness from the wrong individual. It was not Claire's responsibility to soothe his guilt or affirm his newfound understanding. To To genuinely distinguish himself from his mother, he had to demonstrate it through his actions rather than mere words. In the confines of his car, Nathan's gaze was fixed on his phone. 17 missed calls, 29 unread emails, each one pressing for choices regarding a future that now seemed more ambiguous than it did just a day prior. For the first time in his adult life, Nathan Reynolds contemplated the bold notion of refusing. Nathan's office struck him as alien upon his arrival, overly polished, meticulously designed, and starkly detached from the vibrant reality he had experienced in Brooklyn. His assistant lingered nervously, recounting missed chances and postponed appointments as though they were the fallen in a fierce battle. "The London team is awaiting your call in 20 minutes, she reminded him, "and your mother has reached out 3 times. Nathan nodded with a sense of detachment, positioning himself behind his desk as his thoughts lingered in a quaint bakery just beyond the bridge. The disparity was striking, from the unfiltered truth of Claire's expressions to the measured tact of corporate messaging. He instructed to send the London proposal to my email and to inform my mother that I'll call her this evening. In the solitude of his office, Nathan unveiled the London file, a carefully constructed career move that would solidify his standing within the Reynolds empire. Half a year prior, he would have put pen to paper without a second thought. Now he discovered himself interpreting the nuances, perceiving not a chance but a duty. His phone vibrated, signaling a message from his mother. "The board anticipates your confirmation today. Do not let us down." The well-known weight constricted his chest, the unspoken menace in "don't disappoint" that had influenced his choices since he was a child. Nathan shut his eyes, listening to Claire's voice. "You are just like your mother." Did she have the correct perspective? Had he transformed into that which he professed to disdain? The call from London unfolded seamlessly, at least on the surface. Courtesies acknowledged, shared advantages detailed, schedule established. Nathan uttered the anticipated phrases, yet an increasing part of him resisted every single one. He concluded that they would finalize by Friday, neither confirming nor denying at this point. Following the call, Nathan took an unexpected action. He departed at dawn, steering not towards home but to his mother's estate. The reckoning he had evaded for years could no longer be postponed. Margaret felt a jolt of surprise at his unexpected arrival, yet she swiftly regained her composure. As they made themselves comfortable in her study, she remarked on the London team's impressive demeanor. "Indeed, that is how it ought to be. You belong to the Reynolds family." Nathan observed his mother, perceiving her distinctly, perhaps for the first time, not as the flawless business mogul, but as an individual who had traded her humanity for achievement, her connections for dominance. "I researched Ellen Dawson," he stated bluntly. Margaret's expression grew steely. "I mentioned that was a thing of the past. She brought to light the discrepancies in the accounts, and you went after her for it," Nathan continued. "She suffered a stroke and lost it all. Her daughter had to set aside her career to look after her. Business demands tough choices," Margaret responded with composure. Ellen was fully aware of the dangers that accompanied her accusations. Nathan retorted, "Those aren't accusations. They're facts." He found himself taken aback by his own conviction. "I reviewed the audit reports," and Margaret's eyes narrowed. "Since when have you started to challenge company policies?" As I came to understand our true values, Nathan leaned in closer. "Claire Dawson crafts delightful birthday cakes and supports local children in their pursuit of community college education. What else do we produce for those who are already affluent?" His mother's laughter cut through the air. "Don't be gullible. Your ease of living is a result of the tough choices I undertake. That bakery girl might think she holds a moral high ground while earning minimum wage, but her name is Claire," Nathan interjected, "and she has created something genuine. More than I can express for us." Margaret placed her teacup down with intentional precision. "Your words suggest that you might be on the verge of an error." The once familiar warning would have hushed him in the past. Now it merely fortified his determination. "Perhaps for the very first time, I'm on the verge of doing something correctly," he responded. The journey back to Manhattan refreshed Nathan's thoughts. Upon arriving at his apartment, he had firmly resolved his choice. He reached out to the London office, turning down the position with a self-assurance that astonished even him. Next was the more challenging conversation with his mother. He declared that he wasn't taking London when she responded. Margaret's voice held a perilous stillness. "Think it over thoroughly, Nathan," he responded, reflecting on his whole existence. "I'm currently in New York, but I'll be implementing some adjustments at Reynolds Industries. You lack the necessary authority." Nathan reminded her that he was on the board. "I possess 20% of the voting shares, and I've already had discussions with Uncle James and Cousin Eliza. There is a consensus that the moment has come for a reevaluation of ethical frameworks." The stillness that ensued was unlike anything he had ever felt with his mother. Not measured, but truly astonished. "This concerns that bakery girl," Margaret finally stated, her tone laced with accusation. "This is a reflection of my journey," Nathan clarified. "Regarding the organization I aspire to join, focusing on a legacy that transcends mere profit." Once the call concluded, Nathan positioned himself by the window, gazing out at the sprawling cityscape. For the first time in years, maybe even for the first time ever, he had decided to forge his own way. The unpredictability was both frightening and thrilling. He had no anticipation of forgiveness or a mending of ties with Claire. He hadn't made these choices for that reason. Still, he couldn't shake the desire to demonstrate to her that transformation was possible. Not by mere words, but by actions that could not be brushed aside as convenient guilt. Tomorrow he would embark on the journey of atonement. Not in pursuit of forgiveness, but presenting something of greater significance. Responsibility and transformation. Regardless of whether Claire Dawson would ever engage with him again, Nathan Reynolds had ultimately discovered his own voice. After a fortnight, Nathan finally mustered the bravery to make his way back to Rise. Those weeks changed his life in ways that were both nuanced and significant. Gatherings that previously centered around profit now embraced conversations about influence. Workers who had previously hesitated to voice their thoughts started to tentatively share their ideas. Reynolds Industries was not established as a philanthropic organization. Yet, a change had occurred. A shift in focus that created waves across the organization. A notable transformation emerged with the creation of a new fund aimed at supporting employees who were unjustly dismissed during Margaret's time in office. The list of recipients prominently featured Ellen Dawson's name. Nathan had implemented these changes discreetly, without any announcements or grandstanding. Certain actions should be allowed to convey their own meaning. On the morning of his long-awaited return to Brooklyn, Nathan chose a simple outfit. A pair of jeans paired with a cozy sweater. There are no designer labels or status symbols. Upon his arrival, the bakery exuded a serene stillness. The mid-morning stillness fostered a closeness that both embraced and unsettled him. Claire was meticulously arranging a display case when the bell chimed to signal his arrival. She raised her gaze. A fleeting look of surprise crossed her features before her expression settled into a careful neutrality. "You're back," she remarked, adjusting her posture. Nathan nodded, making his way to the counter with deliberate steps. Claire observed him closely, taking note of the lack of his typical professional facade. Not wearing a suit today. He described it as a day off, even though it happened to be Tuesday. A pause lingered in the air, heavy with unvoiced inquiries and nascent reflections. "How may I assist you today?" Claire finally inquired. A polished and authoritative tone is established. Nathan paused, uncertainty flickering in his mind. "A cup of coffee would be wonderful. Perhaps just a few moments of your attention." Claire's gaze sharpened just a touch, yet she acquiesced with a nod. "Please have a seat. I will deliver it personally." Nathan selected a quaint table by the window, observing the lively scene of Brooklyn unfold beyond the glass. Everyday individuals navigating their own paths, free from the weight of ancestral demands and corporate inheritances. Their simplicity held a certain beauty, an authenticity he had only just started to value. As Claire came over with his coffee, he was taken aback when she unexpectedly took a seat across from him. She mentioned 5 minutes. "The bread is currently baking in the oven." Nathan inhaled deeply. I declined the opportunity in London, he started. Claire arched an eyebrow yet chose to say nothing. Over the last fortnight, I have been reworking our termination policies and setting up a restitution fund. He locked his gaze with hers. The first payment should reach your mother by the end of the week. It encompasses compensation for past wages, damages, and provisions for continuing medical costs. Claire's poised demeanor wavered. Excuse me? Nathan recognized that it wouldn't change what had occurred. Nothing is capable of doing so. Yet it's a beginning. Claire fixed her gaze on him, probing for hidden intentions. Why, she ultimately inquired. What is the reason for this moment? Nathan pondered the question with great thoughtfulness. He conceded that it wasn't meant for you. While our encounter sparked something within me, my actions were ultimately for my own sake. I must create something that resonates with my convictions. I have dedicated my life to seeking my mother's validation. I no longer wish to continue. The sincerity of his reply appeared to resonate with Claire in ways a more measured response could not. She reclined, absorbing his words. Did your mother really permit this? Nathan chuckled gently. She found herself with limited options. I secured sufficient backing from the board to move it forward. Following that, our conversation was filled with tension. I bet, Claire murmured. She examined him once more, as though truly perceiving him for the very first time. What exactly are you? Transforming the malevolent regime from the inside? He nodded in agreement, something along those lines. While I might not phrase it that way in our annual report. A flicker of a smile graced Claire's lips. The first real warmth he had witnessed from her since their very first encounter. It disappeared swiftly, supplanted by a carefulness forged through past encounters. This does not negate what transpired, she stated with conviction. Nathan acknowledged this. I won't request that you erase the past, but I want you to understand that I am not my mother. Claire's phone emitted a buzz from the timer. My bread, she articulated, upright. Nathan nodded, acknowledging the conclusion of their discussion. Thank you for your attention. Claire hesitated before departing. Is your mother aware that you're here? No, Nathan said with sincerity. This is no longer about her. A subtle shift appeared in Claire's expression. Return tomorrow, she instructed. We are experimenting with new recipes. I would appreciate a candid perspective. The invitation, though unadorned, carried the warmth of a delightful surprise. I would appreciate that. As Claire made her way back to the kitchen, Nathan stayed seated at the table, leisurely sipping his coffee while observing the neighborhood beyond the window. He had not arrived in search of absolution or a new beginning with Claire. He had arrived because truth demanded it. For the man he was evolving into would no longer seek refuge in easy silences or familiar separations. The nature of their relationship remained shrouded in ambiguity. Claire was entirely justified in keeping her defenses up, assessing him in light of his family's behavior. Once shattered, trust cannot be mended by elaborate displays or solitary discussions. For the first time in his life, Nathan was embracing his own values instead of conforming to the expectations placed upon him. That distinction set him apart from the individual who had initially entered Rise in search of a last-minute birthday cake. As he stepped out of the bakery, Nathan discovered a feeling that had been missing from his life for far too long. Not joy exactly, but its more subdued relative. Tranquility. In the months that followed, Nathan found himself regularly visiting Rise, making it an integral part of his daily life. Occasionally, he would show up ahead of the morning hustle, assisting Claire with flower deliveries or shifting trays. On some days, he would arrive during the afternoon calm, quietly settling in with his laptop as she explored new culinary creations. In these fleeting instances, they forged a cautious camaraderie, deliberate and restrained, yet slowly beginning to blossom. Claire approached the situation with a careful mindset, her trust hard-earned and not freely bestowed following the trials her family had faced. Yet, she found it impossible to overlook the transformations in Nathan or the consequences of his choices. The restitution fund significantly alleviated her mother's financial pressures, enabling enhanced care and even minor advancements in Ellen's condition. On that Wednesday afternoon, as they settled into what had become his table, Claire reminded Nathan of the date today. After months of absence, Nathan beamed, a true sense of satisfaction lighting up his face. That's absolutely delightful. The expert believes that alleviating her stress has been beneficial. Claire paused for a moment, then softly said, "Thank you for that." It marked the initial clear recognition of his endeavors, and Nathan received it with a subtle nod, grasping its importance. At Reynolds Industries, the transformations persisted. Margaret held the position of chairman, yet her sway had lessened as Nathan steadily introduced more ethical practices. The shift was anything but seamless. Veteran leaders pushed back, investors raised doubts, rivals hovered. However, an unforeseen event occurred. Employee satisfaction saw an uptick, talent retention became more robust, and although there were initial expenses, their reputation started to bounce back. During a particularly tense board meeting, Margaret remarked that her grandfather would be disappointed. Perhaps Nathan had responded with composure, or perhaps he understood that business models change over time. His mother's disapproval, which had once struck him deeply, now served as validation that he was indeed heading in the right direction. She continued to call every day, still trying to manipulate and control, yet the balance of power had shifted beyond repair. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Nathan made his way to Rise, arriving just as Claire was wrapping up for the night. She appeared weary, a trace of flour dusting her cheek, strands of hair breaking free from her tidy bun. "Exhausting day?" he inquired, assisting her in arranging the chairs. Claire inclined her head, resting against the counter. Challenges in the supply chain, rising costs, and customer expectations for stable pricing. Nathan recognized the struggle. Small businesses were encountering extraordinary pressures. "Have you thought about broadening your horizons?" he inquired with care. Establishing a second location might aid in spreading out overhead expenses. With what resources? Claire let out a weary chuckle. Financial institutions are not particularly eager to support bakeries at this moment. Nathan paused, considering his next words with great deliberation. "I'm acquainted with a few investors who prioritize supporting local enterprises, ethical financing, and fair conditions." Claire cast him a glance filled with understanding. "When you refer to some investors, you're talking about yourself." He acknowledged, among other things, that there were no strings attached, merely a possibility to think about. "Nathan," Claire sighed, "blending work with whatever this is between us, it's intricate." The recognition of an unspoken connection lingered in the atmosphere, elusive yet palpable. Until this moment, neither had broached the subject directly. "Consider it," Nathan remarked plainly. "That's all I request." They completed the task in a serene quietude. As twilight enveloped Brooklyn, the street morphed into a softer version of its daytime persona. Claire mentioned that she ought to head home. "Tomorrow begins bright and early." Nathan nodded, a wave of hesitation washing over him as he considered the prospect of concluding their evening. He hesitated, a flutter of anxiety coursing through him, and finally asked, "Would you be interested in having dinner with me one evening, absent from this place? Let's steer clear of discussions about work or our personal lives. Two individuals navigating the complexities of life together." Claire observed him intently, her face a mask of mystery as the light dimmed around them. The silence lingered, and Nathan braced himself for the impending rejection. "All right," she finally spoke, a subtle smile gracing her lips. "Yet in a place that feels ordinary. Not one of those establishments where the menu omits prices." Nathan chuckled, a wave of relief sweeping over him. Agreed. They decided to meet that weekend, trading phone numbers even though they had been acquainted for months. There was an inherent correctness to the formality of it, a recognition that they were entering uncharted territory, an experience neither had foreseen when he first entered her bakery. As Nathan navigated the road home, he reflected on the profound transformations his life had undergone since that pivotal day. His world had grown beyond the confines of boardrooms and balance sheets to embrace early mornings in Brooklyn, the aroma of fresh bread, and dialogues that strayed far from corporate strategy. Just as he stepped into his apartment, Margaret's call came through, her timing as impeccable as ever. The London office is facing challenges. She started without a salutation. They require guidance. In the past, he would have swiftly started to reorganize his existence to address this issue. At this point, he merely stated that they would have to seek it out in other places. The disapproval from his mother echoed across the line. This pertains to that baker, correct? This pertains to decisions, Nathan clarified. Finally, it's mine. Once the call concluded, Nathan positioned himself by the window, gazing out at Brooklyn. The journey that lay before me was shrouded in ambiguity. Claire bore a reasonable caution. He grappled with the weight of his heritage. Their realms diverged at the core, their journeys marked by disparity. For the first time, Nathan was selecting what truly mattered to him, rather than adhering to expectations, and that shift made all the difference. 5 months after their initial date, Nathan and Claire found themselves on a bench in Prospect Park, sipping coffee and observing the Saturday morning joggers who dared to face the early spring chill. Their relationship unfolded gradually, with intention, embodying a carefulness that honored their intricate past. There were no grand gestures or passionate encounters, only a steady development of trust fostered by regular companionship and sincere discussions. Yesterday, Claire broke the comfortable silence by mentioning that Mom had asked about you. She was curious about when you might join us for dinner again. Nathan beamed with delight. The progress of Ellen Dawson has emerged as one of the delightful surprises of recent months. Although she would never completely heal from her stroke, her clarity had improved sufficiently to foster authentic connections. Their initial encounter was fraught with tension, as one might expect, yet Ellen astonished all with her ability to progress while still holding on to the past. Nathan responded with enthusiasm, "I'd like that. How about we consider next weekend?" Claire inclined her head, gently resting against his shoulder. This easy closeness had unfolded over months, with every touch being a deliberate decision rather than a given. Nathan had acquired patience in ways his former existence never demanded, discovering unexpected joy in the gradual development of their bond. The evolution at Reynolds Industries pressed on. Initially, profits took a hit during the implementation of ethical reforms, but they began to recover gradually as new clients, drawn in by the enhanced practices, filled the void left by those who left. Margaret held her ground on the board, yet her sway diminished as Nathan's vision attracted more backing. Nathan observed a pair of cardinals darting between the still bare branches as he contemplated stepping back from daily operations and promoting Jasmine to COO. Claire shifted her gaze to examine his features. "That's quite a significant shift. Are you certain about it?" "The company doesn't require my constant oversight on every decision," he clarified, "and I desire more time for other pursuits." The unvoiced matters lingered in the air, mere possibilities they were just starting to delve into. Nathan had unearthed a knack for guiding aspiring entrepreneurs from underrepresented backgrounds, while Claire was contemplating the second location they had deliberated on months prior. Claire noted with a hint of compassion that her mother would resist it. Nathan gave a slight nod. "Perhaps, but it no longer feels like her company, not truly." They lingered in stillness for a moment, at ease with the quiet, allowing it to envelop them without the need to break it. Surrounding them, Brooklyn pulsed with its Saturday vibes, families navigating with strollers, elderly couples enjoying their routine strolls, and teenagers huddled together in joyful laughter. "I never expressed my gratitude properly," Claire said abruptly. Nathan arched an eyebrow. "What for?" She stated it plainly, for the sake of change. It might have been simpler to avoid it altogether. The insight resonated with remarkable precision. It would certainly have been simpler to uphold the existing order, embracing the role passed down to him along with its accompanying responsibilities. The route he opted for had taken a toll on his connections, his sense of security, and his mother's endorsement, sacrifices that would have once felt insurmountable. "It's worth it," he said, grasping her hand. Claire's smile conveyed a depth of understanding that transcended mere words. She had opted for a more challenging journey, embracing forgiveness while retaining memories, allowing herself to connect despite valid reservations, and navigating the delicate equilibrium between safeguarding herself and embracing new opportunities. As they strolled back to Claire's apartment above the bakery, their conversation flowed effortlessly, filled with the simplicity of weekend plans. No sweeping proclamations interrupted their routine. No shocking truths altered their path. Just two individuals opting for one another despite significant challenges, creating something neither had foreseen on that chilly autumn afternoon when Nathan first entered to Rise. Later that evening, as they prepared dinner in Claire's cozy kitchen, Nathan couldn't help but observe her, flour once more speckling her sleeves as she worked the dough for the next day's bread. A ritual she seemed unable to forsake even on her day off. The unadorned familiarity of the scene hit him with surprising intensity. "Excuse me?" Claire inquired, locking eyes with him. "Nothing," Nathan replied, but then he paused to think again. "In fact, all of it. I've come to appreciate this life more than I ever thought possible." Claire smiled, grasping the significance woven into his seemingly straightforward words. "It deviates from your original intentions." "Improved," he asserted with conviction. They carried on with their culinary endeavor, gliding through the kitchen with the fluidity of a well-rehearsed dance. Nathan had not completely relinquished his corporate identity. He continued to participate in board meetings, still made strategic decisions impacting thousands. Yet he had carved out room for this alternative life, this more serene existence that complemented his more visible one. In a similar vein, Claire upheld her autonomy, her enterprise flourishing under her unique perspective. She had not permitted their relationship to eclipse her hard-earned achievements or aspirations for the future. They uplifted one another while maintaining their individuality, each becoming more resilient through their bond without allowing it to define them. As they took their seats at Claire's modest table, Nathan came to understand that what they had created together was far from the sweeping romance depicted in films or literature. There were no elaborate displays, no bold proclamations, no instant where everything transformed. Rather, they had forged something deeper, a connection founded on everyday decisions, unwavering actions, and shared respect. "What thoughts are crossing your mind?" Claire inquired, extending the loaf they had crafted side by side. Nathan pondered the question for a moment before responding with straightforward sincerity. Often, the most compelling narratives emerge from subtle moments rather than bold proclamations or dramatic actions. At times, it's merely two individuals positioned on either end of a bridge, each prepared to take a step closer. Claire's smile conveyed a deep understanding between them. In that comprehension, serene, deep, and wholly deserved, resided all that was significant. You've just journeyed through the tale of Nathan and Claire, two individuals hailing from entirely distinct realms who discovered one another amidst unforeseen events. A tale of redemption, challenging decisions, and the bravery to embrace an alternative route when the easier option would have been to remain on the familiar path. If this story about genuine relationships and new beginnings moved you, please share your thoughts below on what struck a chord with you. Did this narrative resonate with you? Enjoy this video and pass it along to someone who appreciates tales of personal growth. If you haven't done so yet, consider subscribing to the channel for more engaging content like this. We'd love to hear from you. Which country are you tuning in from to watch this video? Share your thoughts in the comments, and together we can uncover the journey of this story.